Good morning, one and all. Om Agana Timaranda Sangana Sadakya. Chaksurun Militam Yana Tasmai Sugirave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobistam Stapitam Yana Bhutare. Sayam Rupakaramyam Darati Swaparantikam. Vandeham Siguru Siyata Parakamaram Shigarun Vaishnavam Sya. Siyarupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sidevam. Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sayitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Siyadha Krishna Padan Sahagana Larita Shivishakan Vitam Sya. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pachadine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Paskata Desa Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Cheganaruttamam Devam Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayo Dyaryatnashta Priyashu Bhadrisu Nityam Bhagavatasaya Bhagavati Tamashoki Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Nigama Kapurur Garitam Param Shukamakaram Ritadra Visamitam Pibata Bhagatam Rashamaliyam Muhora Hora Sika Bhavi Babakaham Krishna Swadam Upagate Damirgyani Hesara Karona Stadu Shamasha Pananako Dunodira. Good morning, Govinda Dev. Good morning, Sundari Priya. Good morning, Anjali with Hashtag Wisdom Wednesday. Good morning, Bill. Hare Krishna. Thanks to you all. And Thomas, I didn't know that yesterday was your 50th birthday, you rascal. You withheld that information from us. We want to celebrate the appearance days of great devotees, so don't deny us that honor and that privilege. Today is Wednesday, July 22nd. We're coming up on Janmashtami, within a couple weeks away. That'll be August 11th, a Tuesday. We're already talking about how we can observe it during the pandemic. Thomas says it was not something he wanted to think about. Welcome, Gopalananda. Now, this verse is so pivotal and so key, and the purport that Prabhupada wrote just goes on and on and on and on. Therefore, we're spending our third day on the 28th verse, second chapter, first canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Vasudeva para Veda, Vasudeva para Maka, Vasudeva para Yoga, Vasudeva para Kriya, Vasudeva param Jnanam, Vasudeva param Tapa, Vasudeva para Dhammo, Vasudeva para Gati. The title of today's talk is The Glories of Devotional Service. Translation of this verse. In the revealed scriptures, the ultimate object of knowledge is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The purpose of sacrifice is to please him. Yoga is for realizing him. All fruit or activities are ultimately rewarded by him only. Good morning, Prashant. He is supreme knowledge, and all severe austerities are performed to know him. Religion is rendering loving service to him. He is the supreme goal of life. So in the previous 2 days, Motivation Monday, Transcendental Tuesday, we read some of the other paragraphs of the purport. So we're moving down through the purport here. This is also so for the culture of knowledge. According to the Bhagavad Gita, there are 18 items in culturing knowledge. By such culture of knowledge, one becomes gradually prideless, devoid of vanity, non-violent, forbearing, simple, devoted to the spiritual master, and self-controlled. By culture of knowledge, one becomes unattached to hearth and home, and one becomes conscious of the miseries due to birth, death, old age, and disease. And all culture of knowledge culminates in devotional service to the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Therefore, Vasudeva is the ultimate aim in culturing all different branches of knowledge. Culture of knowledge leading one to the transcendental plane of meeting Vasudeva is real knowledge. Physical knowledge in its various branches is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita as aganam, or the opposite of real knowledge. The ultimate aim of physical knowledge is to satisfy the senses, which means prolongation of the term of material existence and thereby continuance of the threefold miseries. Prolonging the miserable life of material existence is nescience, but the same physical knowledge leading to the way of spiritual understanding helps one to end the miserable life of physical existence and to begin the life of spiritual existence on the plane of Vasudeva. One of the beauties of devotional service that we've discussed in previous days is that one can be in the material world. One can be a husband, a father, a politician, a leader, an employer, an employee, And even while within what Prabhupada calls the material jurisdiction, one can still execute devotional service. In the material world, an endeavor has to be completed 100% in order to be successful. And even then, the fruits are temporary. Prabhupada gives the example. It takes 4 years of undergraduate work, I think 4 years of graduate work, and then 2 years of residency before one can become a doctor. So that's 10 years of education. Let's say you do that for 9 years and 11 months, and then you some or other decide it wasn't for you. So an entire season of your life was wasted. An entire decade comes to naught. But even a tiny effort of devotional service yields you two important results. And we ended our class yesterday by mentioning the two really wonderful results of even doing a little bit of devotional service, even if you retreat. Arjuna asks in the 6th chapter, I believe it is, Kachad no bhaya vibarashtas chanabam ivanasati apatisto mahabaho vimudo brahmanamati. What is the situation, Arjuna asks Krishna, of someone who does some devotional service and then, due to being re-attracted to women and wealth, he lapses back into the material pool? So what is his position? Arjuna says, is he not homeless, you might say? He's neither a spiritualist nor he's a materialist. He's lost time while pursuing material life. He's fallen behind in the rat race. So where is he? Arjuna says, does he not have does he have any position in any sphere? And he gives the example of a cloud. You see a big, fluffy cloud. And as you're watching, a part of that cloud detaches itself from the whole and then goes its own way. But because of its diminutive size, it just evaporates. The cloud itself disappears. You can no longer see the vapors. So he says, isn't it true of one who engages somewhat in spiritual life, but then lapses, that he's like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? And Krishna immediately and very definitively answers back, Sipram Bhavati Dharma Sasakant, Konti Apradini. He says, no endeavor in devotional service is ever lost, nor is it ever wasted. And Krishna categorically denies the analogy that Arjuna has put forth, asserting that devotional service is the prime endeavor of life, and any advancement in devotional service is to one's eternal benefit in two ways. One is, as we said yesterday, Atavasya Padamboja, Makaranda Lihamsadam, Kiman Yerisarabhya, Ayushodadishadvya. Once you taste the honey, the madhu, from serving the lotus feet of the Lord and sheltering under his protective wings, it says you can never forget that. You can go back to material life, but not really, because you're different, you're forever changed. You've gotten a taste for which you're always anxious. Sometimes the example is given, a newborn baby. Now, this isn't his first birth. It's not his or her first entrance into the material world. They've had births before, presumably many of them human. And in each and every birth, they were hankering after something. They didn't know what it was. They were shrouded in forgetfulness. But it was something they'd experienced in the past, and they knew they needed it again in this current incarnation. But due to forgetfulness and the trauma being in the womb for 9 months, they couldn't recall, they couldn't picture or define what it is exactly they're hankering for. A baby comes out of the womb crying, I want something, there's something I want, there's something I'm hankering for, not exactly sure what it is. And then the mother sticks the nipple of her breast in, and the baby sucks the breast milk of the mother. Rich, creamy, full of cholesterol, boosting the immune system, and then the baby, aha, yeah, this is what I was hankering for. Similarly, it is that nectar for which we're always hankering. And it is only that nectar of service to the lotus feet of the Lord which will satisfy the soul on the deepest level. And therefore, anybody who's done devotional service can never really become a materialist again, or become a mental speculator again, or can become a yogi devoid of devotional service again. Unfortunately, you're addicted. You've got that taste, and that taste will never go away. When we do our Festival of Colors, we go to various cities and various states, or we used to before the pandemic. You know, people, they write to us, they give reviews on Groupon, they give Google reviews, and many people say, I don't know what it was about that festival. I never experienced anything like that. The music was different, the lyrics were different, the food was different, the message from the stage. I never, in any concert or weekend festival that I went to, even some of the transformational festivals, there was something indefinable, there's something unique about this festival. And they came and they enjoyed it and they went away, and they didn't think anything about it. But there was something lingering in their consciousness, some taste that they'd intersected, come across, and they may have experienced it in previous lives as well. And they're basically catching up or remembering an experience or getting a déjà vu impression from a previous life. But they want it again on some unconscious level. They want it again. It may not be as dramatic as the baby drinking the mother's breast milk. It's not, maybe their reaction is, yeah, this is it, and then they join the temple, or then they buy some beads and start chanting. Not too many people do that. Because we've been, you know, we've been removed from devotional service. We've been disconnected from our Lord for who knows how long. So the revival, the process of reviving our Krishna consciousness, it can be very powerful, but spirit is subtle. And we basically habituate ourselves to very, very gross material pleasures. And when we reacquaint ourselves with the subtle sublimity of Krishna consciousness, it's not like a bolt from the blue. It's not like Saul on the road to Damascus. But it is there. It's just because it's subtle and sublime, people don't immediately recognize it or immediately pinpoint it. But there is that lingering hankering. Yeah, I want to do that again. I want to hear the holy name again. I want to chant the holy name again. I want to be with devotees again. I want to take some of that vegan, vegetarian food that's been offered to the Lord. So that's the one benefit about devotional service. Or rather, we're talking about partial devotional service. We're talking about incomplete. What to speak of if you actually do it diligently and assiduously. We're not even talking about that today. We're saying that in comparison to material efforts, which have to be done wholeheartedly, and in many cases you literally have to sell your soul and do it 100% in order to get a temporary material benefit which lasts 10 or 20 or 30 years. Partial, incomplete devotional service gives you these kinds of benefits. What to speak of complete devotional service? So aside from the taste of the honey from the lotus feet of the Lord, the thing that we mentioned just at the end of the class yesterday is that Krishna says, Samaham sarvabhuteshu name dveshastina iti mamyo vida tadvenadvas chayavanti te. He says he's the Father of all living beings, and therefore he's kindly, generously, lovingly disposed towards all of his creations, not only souls and human bodies, but reptile bodies, bird bodies, aquatic bodies. He claims them all as his parts and parcels. He has affection for all of them. Having said that, those who step up out of the crowd, who distinguish themselves by consecrating their words, their deeds, their mind, their wealth in the service of the Lord, Krishna goes further. He says he goes from just being kindly disposed to them, having fatherly affection for them, but for those who distinguish themselves by serving and honoring him, by chanting his holy names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna says they are friends. They are friends to me, and I am a friend to them. So anyone who's done even partial or incomplete devotional service is now being looked after by the Lord. Like the son of a rich man, he may have forgotten where he comes from. He may have forgotten he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He may be wandering as a beggar, as a homeless person here and there, not remembering or not acknowledging his father, not acknowledging his ancestry or aristocracy. But the Father never forgets him, and the Father always sends people to check on him, to make sure that he's okay, to make sure that he's not mugged or that he's not hungry. And they may find some secret, not so obvious means of getting him out of trouble and supporting him. But this is the advantage of even partial, incomplete devotional service. You're no longer on your own. If you want to be on your own, you want to be independent of God, you want to neglect God, and you're averse to doing any service to him or to chanting his holy names. You know, some people get into a rage. You know, the chanting party comes down the street, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. I've seen people hold their ears. I've seen people shout and revile and blaspheme devotees. I've been attacked physically while simply going out on the street and chanting Hare Krishna. If someone's indifferent or averse to devotional service, then the Krishna is not going to help them against their will. It says, I do not assume the results of anyone's pious or impious activities. When you cut yourself off from the Lord, basically you're the doer. You're no longer serving as an instrument on behalf of the Lord, but you've established yourself as a little potentate in this material world. And when you do that, you get the liability. You get the reactions of your activities. And some of them might be good and some of them might be bad. But because you're not connected to the Lord, you're basically adrift, like an orphan with no witnesses, no protectors, nobody, no one checking in on you, no one watching out for you. So that's what we just concluded at the last of yesterday's talk, that you've got the taste of devotional service and you're no longer disconnected from the Lord. And because he's more eager to get us back home, back to God than we are to go, it's a great boon, it's a great benediction for the Lord to be working behind the scenes, working to get you to where you need to go. So by one fell stroke, through devotional service, these benefits come. And if you continue in your devotional service, in spite of disturbances, in spite of the demands of the senses, in spite of critics, or whatever it may come your way, Prabhupada said, devotees are a friend to everyone, but not everybody is a friend to the devotees. But one needn't worry about the censor of people in general. People don't promote you. People don't uplift you. Ultimately, God is the one who promotes you. God is the one who uplifts you. We say over and over again, you and God are a majority. Therefore, it is said in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 18th chapter, 12th verse, Yashyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarvara gunastata samaste shuraha. For one who's engaged, who's connected with the Lord in devotional service and continues consistently to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, to take prasadam, vegetarian, vegan food offered to the Lord, to associate with devotees, and to do some services for the mission of Krishna consciousness. In such a person, all good qualities reside. The demigods themselves do not have better qualities than someone who's humbly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. On the other hand, as I mentioned, those who are indifferent to or averse to devotional service of the Lord because they're disconnected, they don't really have any good qualities. Consider a leaf which is connected to the tree. It's getting, the tree is getting nourished through the root, and the water is distributing itself to each and every leaf, and those leaves are green. They have a nice smooth texture. They're vital. Some leaves you can taste them. You can even eat them right off the tree. So there's so many good things, vital things that could be noticed and said about a leaf or a fruit or a flower that's attached to the trunk, to the whole. And yet there's nothing good that can be noticed or said about a leaf or a flower or fruit that's detached from the tree. A leaf that detaches itself from the tree is yellow, it's wrinkled, it has a horrible texture, it cracks. There's nothing valuable about it. Or probably just to give the example of a finger. When it's attached, you can't even calculate the value. Some people who are professional musicians will insure their fingers for millions and millions of dollars. But once the finger is detached from the tree, what value does it have? You just, yuck, you know. An amputated finger, just try and get it out of sight and out of mind as soon as you can. By virtue of one's attachment to Krishna, all good qualities manifest themselves inside of a devotee. Why is that? Why is it that one needn't work separately in order to become a perfect lady or gentleman? That's explained in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 11th verse. And by the way, thank you very much for all your input. We're partners here. I'm not just speaking to you, but your reciprocation, your likes, your comments, all of that is pushing us higher according to the Facebook algorithm. So together we're missionaries, you might say, cyber missionaries. The more you interact, the more successful we'll be during these sessions, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Thank you. 10th chapter, 11th verse of the Bhagavad Gita. Isham evanu kampartam aham aganam jamtamaha nisyama yatma bhavashto gana deepana bhashata. Krishna is within the heart of every living being. So if you don't want Krishna's help, you don't want Krishna's light, you don't want Krishna's creativity, you don't want Krishna's insight, you don't want Krishna's strength, you don't want Krishna's determination, you don't want Krishna's, then Krishna's not going to give it to you against your will. But if you're open, then seated within the heart, out of special mercy, remember, who renders service to him is a friend, and he is a friend to you. So your friend in the heart, who happens to be the Lord of millions of universes, who happens to know everything past, present, and future, who happens to be in the heart of every other living being, as well as your enemies, he says, he destroys with the shining torchlight of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. Whew! That's it. That's what boon, what benediction, what blessing can you get? We should all pray every day. Lord, please illuminate the dark courtyard of my heart with the light of transcendental knowledge. Lord, please accept me as your friend. In Benares, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was visiting there and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare in the streets, it was a stronghold of impersonalists, dry, philosophical speculators, Vedantists. They spent all their days studying and trying to pull out esoteric meanings and interpretations from the Vedas and establish themselves as big scholars and big talking heads, you might say. Prakasananda, who had no less than 10,000 mental speculator disciples there in Benares, he derided Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a sentimentalist for singing and dancing in the streets. And Prabhupada says that's sometimes true, that those who are mental speculators, who are gifted by God with a big brain, they often deride devotees because they think that the devotees are in the darkest of ignorance and they're philosophically naive sentimentalists, not interested in philosophy. They spend their time singing and dancing and chanting. But that devotees are not interested in philosophy is not at all the fact. There are more devotee authors, there are more devotee philosophers than there are mental speculators, than there are Mayavadi or impersonalistic philosophers. The main impersonalistic philosopher who comes to mind, of course, is Shankaracharya, who himself was an incarnation of Lord Shiva, who himself admitted as Shankar that he wanted to lead people to devotional service, but because they're averse to the personalistic conception of God, he's taking them in an indirect way through the path of impersonalism, a little detour, you might say. Now, apart from Shankar, the main pillar of impersonalistic mental speculative Mayavadi philosopher. There is Madhvacharya on the devotional Vaishnav side, on the personalistic side. There is Ramanujacharya, there's Valadev Vidyabhusan, there's Vishwanath Chakravarti, there's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jiva Goswami, Raghunath Das, Raghunath Bhatt, Gopal Bhatta, Rupa Goswami, whose disappearance day is coming up here in a few weeks, Sanatan Goswami. There are thousands and thousands of highly philosophical books about Krishna Bhakti. There's a library, an archive in Vrindavan with 10,000 books written about Krishna and Krishna Bhakti. So it is not at all true to say that those who espouse devotional service are sentimentalists. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kavara says, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Daya Karaha Vichar Karade Chite Bhabe Chamatkara. Those who are philosophically inclined and who come across the philosophy of bhakti as propounded and inspired by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers, Pabe Chamatkara, your hairs will stand on end. You'll get goosebumps all over your body. You will be amazed, stunned, shocked, astounded at the majesty and antiquity of the philosophy of devotion. Having said that, even if you're not philosophically inclined, even if you accept Krishna consciousness, the practices of chanting and taking prasadam, and you just are fortunate enough to prefer the association of devotees over those of materialists, you can still achieve all the good qualities of the demigods. Prabhupada says, even if one doesn't, simple devotee, take advantage of bhakti literatures, or even, Prabhupada says, of his spiritual master, if he is sincere in his devotional service, he is helped by Krishna himself within the heart. Now, I want to tell you two stories. We all know, if you're a member of ISKCON, the story that one time Bhaktisiddhanta was in Vrindavan for his annual parikram and kata, and there was a choice amongst his disciples to go visit a holy place in Vrindavan that they had not been to before. And most of Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples decided to go off and visit this place. But Prabhupada, our spiritual master, stayed to listen to the lecture of Bhaktisiddhanta. And that was very, very pleasing. Bhaktisiddhanta was so pleased that he chose to stay and listen to the Vani of his spiritual master, as opposed to go out and visit a place of pilgrimage. He was very, very pleased because of Prabhupada's faith in hearing and preference for hearing from the spiritual master. Now here's another sort of juxtaposition here, counterpoint you might say. Prabhupada, when he would visit San Francisco Temple, Los Angeles temples where Jayananda Prabhu, an early disciple of Prabhupada, was. Prabhupada would often arrive at the temple and all the devotees were there and they'd be sitting, and they didn't want to be separated from Prabhupada's vapu at all. They wanted to be in the physical presence, and they were eager for the Vani. Their ears were this big. They didn't want to miss a moment of Prabhupada's being in their jurisdiction, in their city, nor did they want to miss a single syllable coming from Prabhupada's mouth. And that's good. That's the very quality that Bhaktisiddhanta praised in Prabhupada himself and Prabhupada as a disciple. However, when Prabhupada would look over all the devotees, and Prabhupada would say, where is Jayananda? And they'd say, oh, he's building the Rath Yatra carts, or he's cooking prasadam, or he's taking out the trash. It was very rarely that Jayananda came for the darshan of Prabhupada, to sit and listen to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, that is very good. That is very good. So I believe that this is the story that came to my mind when I read these Prabhupada's words. It says, even if a devotee does not take advantage of their literatures or of his spiritual master, so in one sense you'd say, oh, Jayananda is not taking advantage. Prabhupada's here in San Francisco. What's Jayananda doing, going to the trash or building a Rath Yatra? What's he doing? I'll tell you what he's doing. He's serving the spiritual master in love and devotion. And Prabhupada always noticed the first person he was thinking of was Jayananda. And the first thing he would notice is, where is Jayananda? And they would say, well, he's serving you in a remote capacity. And Prabhupada said, that is very good. Another thing is that when Ram came back from exile after 14 years, the citizens had missed him so terribly. It's like their life had gone out they barely dragged on from day to day, and they were just counting the days. So when Ram came back from 14 years of exile, he gave his darshan. He was there. He says, I'm back. I'm not going away anymore. You don't have to worry about it. You can count on the fact that we'll never be apart. But one of the first things he did is he sent Shatrughna and Bharat and Lakshman off to different parts to rule different remote provinces and different remote states. So they just checked in with him occasionally, maybe annually they came back for a reunion. But they mostly spent most of their time then apart from Ram. And Prabhupada in the purport says they got the special mercy. They got the special mercy. So my points are several. One is that devotees are not anti-philosophical. They're not sentimental at all. They're right in the middle of the direct understanding of the Vedas. Vedas Chasara, Vedanta Creed, Vedadi, Eva Chaham. But even if one is, as a devotee, not philosophically inclined, more attracted to service, even in the absence of the spiritual master, then there's no disqualification. Krishna is within the heart of the simple devotee. He's in the heart of the intellectual devotee. He's going to help each one to get where they need to be according to their particular individual proclivities and circumstances. Whatever type of a person you are, whatever tendencies or gifts or talents that you have, just put them on the altar and Krishna will get you to where you need to go. But the important thing is that one only needs to aspire to have an appetite and ambition for getting the mercy of the Lord through service. Atapi te deva padambuja bhaya prashada lashana grahita evahi janati tatpam bhagavan mahimo nachanyo ekopi charan bichinvan. In the 10th canto, a devotee says to the Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace, atapi te deva padambuja dvaya, even if one is favored by so much as a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he or she can understand the greatness of your personality. That's through service. But through speculation, through impersonalism, it says, but those who speculate to understand the supreme personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. I remember one time in Australia, 2 young men came to see Prabhupada. I think they had some background in Vedanta, Yogananda. And so they asked Prabhupada, can you see God? And Prabhupada said, do you know what is God? Do you know what it means to see God? Do you know who is God? Do you know what he looks like? Do you know any of these details? And they said, no, frankly, we don't. And said, so he said, how will you know? How will you know whether I'm telling you the truth or whether I'm just putting you on? And they said, well, we actually don't know. And Prabhupada said, unless you're willing to accept blindly. Now, when Prabhupada would preach, he would preach with so many reasonings, so many arguments, so many scriptural authorities, and quoting so many acharyas. So he's preaching so that we may not accept on blind faith. Vaishnavism, bhakti, devotional service does not rest on divine faith. It's anathema. But in this case, where these guys had no context, no training, no background to verify the truth or lack of the truth in Prabhupada's answer, he said, unless you're willing to accept blindly what I'm saying. And they said, yes, we will accept whatever you're saying. Prabhupada said, then I am seeing God at every moment. Then I am seeing God at every moment. So even blind faith, which is discouraged, will work in Krishna consciousness. There's all reasoning, all argument, all evidence. But if you just want to have blind faith in what Krishna or Prabhupada says, it's okay. It'll work. That will activate Krishna as a friend, as a special friend from within your heart. And why is all of this true? Because of the simple fact that Krishna is more eager to bestow his mercy upon us than we are to receive it. Krishna is more eager to gather us back to home, back to Godhead, than we are to go. We're more attached to Maya. We're struggling in this material world for false happiness. We tend towards speculating about the Lord. And the result of all of that is it just brings us to a morose condition of life. The Lord wants to illuminate us from within the heart. He wants to bring peace, joy, happiness. All this is a precursor for full-blown devotional service and going back to home, back to God. And no morose, depressed, down, defeatist person ever went back to home, back to Godhead. So Krishna wants to get you back. He wants to get you back in the game. He wants you to get your joy back, get your zest back, get excited again, not go around dragging here and there. The result of mental speculation and personalism is just that you become morose. There's that funny story in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the senior disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Vaitacharya and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, were in the Ganges water, and just like kids, they were having a water battle. You know how you water battle? And these were bearded, white-haired, elderly men, and they were just playing like kids, like 6, 8-year-old kid laughing and putting water in the face and wrestling and everything. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, isn't this a wonder? Pabe chamatkara. And previously they were speculating, screwing out indirect means from the Vedas, and now they're so full of nectar. Previously they were just eating cakes without oil, dry cakes. We had some oatmeal raisin cookies on the buffet the other day, and not enough butter had been put into the batch, and so they were a little dry. You eat them, and there wasn't enough butter or margarine that had put in the batch. So Sarvabhauma Acharya particularly was a great philosopher, a great intellect, thousands and thousands of disciples. But when he gave it up for Krishna consciousness, he gave up his moroseness, he gave up his negativity, he gave up his depression in favor of joy, peace, celebration, devotional service. And all this comes as a precursor of full devotional service. Haridas Thakur gives the example that even in the pre-dawn hour, still when it's dark out, when there is even the slightest glimmer of light, similarly when there's the slightest awakening of devotional service, and that means the awakening of Krishna from within the heart, even before one becomes consistent, even before one comes to the offenseless stage of chanting, there is bliss, there is joy, there is peace, there is knowledge. Those qualities which the mental speculators and the impersonalists strive after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, they're delivered even to the neophyte devotee who gets a taste of the nectar for which we're always anxious. I'll make a deal with you. If you give me a lot of stars and likes, if you make a little fireworks, I'll sing you a few versions of my rap version of the Shiksha Stakam. But I got to see that you guys want that first. I know it takes a little delay and all, so there we go. Here we're coming. Okay, you know what? I think I'll just launch into some of the rap version of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Shiksha Astakam about the glories of chanting the holy names of the Lord. 2 or 3 verses. Chanting the holy names cleanses the heart, extinguishes the flames, breaks the flames. Blesses the earth at large with moonlight rays, discharging waves of nectar. Our sense has been craving since ancient days. The holy names put all of their blessing to shame. Krishna Govinda, chanted anywhere, everywhere. The mercy Shakti is fully there. Divine app to restore your mental software. Zap the malware, restart your heart. Tap the reservoir of loving care. No hard and fast rules, no lessons, no schools. The bliss of bhakti rare yet free for the taking. Only declare your heart is aching in divine love awakening. Night and day by constant recitation, chant the great mantra without hesitation, free from temptation with the sensation of feeling yourself lower and the straw in the street, more tall than the tree. Devoid of all sense of false prestige, humility is the key to enjoy the vibration eternally. Wealth in the millions, beautiful women, the spell of fame, worldly acclaim, even liberation, hey, totally lame compared to the champagne of chanting the holy names. Krishna Govinda, Son of Nanda, though you're the one, second to none, my shining sun. I'm heartbroken in this ocean of devotion. Pull me out of this cruel blender, surrender as an atom in the sweet splendor of your tender lotus feet. Lord, when will my eyes pour with tears of love like rain from the skies above? When will my voice choke up invoking your name? When in transcendence will my bodily hairs stand on end? Though a moment appears like 12 years or more, when you're not here, I've only to proclaim your name and I'm smiling again. Even if you restrain me roughly in your embrace, or you pay me by hiding your face, you remain my Lord unconditionally, no matter what the difficulty, decline or gain, rain or shine, I am yours and you're mine. Cheto darpanam arjanam baba devagni nirvapanam sreya kayora vichandika vitaranam vidyavadu jivanam anandam buddhi vardanam patipanam pradam rishashvadanam sarvatmashnopanam param vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam nam namakari bhavdani jasarva shakti sthapita nimita shmaranakara tadishitava kripa bhagavan mama vidur daimiri shamida jani nanuragaham Trinadapisa Nichana Tarodapisa Ishnamani Namanadana Kirtanya Sarahari Nadanam Najanam Nasindarim Kavidam Bhajagadish Mama Janmani Janmani Shri Bhavatad Bhakti Tvaitvi Ahinanda Dunu Jakin Karapatitam Mam Vishame Krupayatava Parapan Kajastitada Shavadishanam Nayanam Gadar Shurayadira Badaram Gudguriyagira Palakanichadam Babu Kada Tavanamagana Rishati Yugayitam Nameshana Chaksusa Pravijayadam Sanyayitam Jagat Saram Govina Mene Ashli Shava Pararam Pinash my with me, if you will. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. If you just joined us, like Daniel, thank you for dropping in. We're talking about the glories of devotional service. And what to speak of full, consistent, complete, offenseless devotional service. Even a drop of devotional service saves you from the greatest danger. In the 40th verse of the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Nahabrikama nasasi pratyavaya shravam piyasya trayate matobayam. Krishna asserts, in this endeavor there's no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of a fear. Let me give you, and thank you, by the way, for all that encouragement. That was just so heady to be sitting here in Spanish Fork on a Wednesday morning. It's actually overcast. Rain is predicted for today. And to have all of you from all over, even as far away as Australia and Malaysia, giving me inspiration while we're reviewing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's 8 verses on the chanting of Hare Krishna. Govinda says, go true, go. So we're winding down here, but let me just give you a nice example of how partial and incomplete devotional service. Remember the story of Ajamil in 6th canto of Bhagavatam. As a youth, he made advancement. He was the son of a Brahmin family. He engaged probably up to his 12th year in the worship of the Lord in the deity form. He helped his father do the services, performed artis. He was completely pure. But then one day, when he was out gathering paraphernalia for the worship, he chanced upon an intoxicated couple, a low-class intoxicated couple on the side of the street who were embracing. And his mind got diverted. Everybody knows how tough the teenage years are. So he just lost it. And he didn't get back on track until he was 82 years old. He married that prostitute. He had a number of sons by her and committed sins in order to maintain her in the family. And it wasn't until he was on his deathbed and the agents, the ghastly agents of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death, were coming to drag his subtle body away for punishment, that he, in terror, absolute terror, called out the name of his youngest son, who happened to be named Vasudeva or Narayana. He wasn't even chanting purely. He wasn't even chanting for Krishna. He was just calling the name of his son out of fear and full of regret. And yet, the result of that was that the agents of Vishnu, the agents of Vasudeva, came and they interrupted the agents of Yamaraj. And they said, because he's chanted one time the name of Vasudeva, the name of Narayan, he's connected, he's reconnected after a hiatus of 70 years. He's now made his reconnection to the Lord. So he's no longer a candidate for punishment. That one recitation has counteracted all more sins than he can commit. So there was a conference then between the agents of Yama and the agents of Narayan. And they decided to give him 2 more years to live, because they wanted to see if he would then relapse and go back to committing sinful activities. Because if someone does that, there's very little that you can really do for them. You can forgive them once, but if they continue to take advantage of the purificatory effects of the chanting of the holy name, then the attitude is incorrigible. So they gave him a reprieve. Instead of dying then and there and being dragged for punishment to Yamaraj, they said, give him 2 more years. And so he got up off of his deathbed. The memory was very vivid. He went to the foothills of the Himalayas, to Rishikesh and Hardwar, got himself in an ashram, carried water, cut up vegetables, listened to the katha, chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And 2 years later, when his death came for a second time, he hadn't committed, not only had he not committed any sins, but he had re-engaged himself in devotional service. So at the point at which, at the age of 82, with all sins behind him, 7 years of total oblivion about Krishna, when he unconsciously and unwittingly chanted the name of the Lord, he had not, as a child, a 12-year-old, when he fell down, he was not at 99% Krishna conscious. This wasn't just the last 1%. It's obvious from his fall down and his susceptibility that he was not that far along in terms of percentage points, and yet he went to the head of the class. He went from the bottom to the top. Why? Because of the mercy of Sri Krishna. Prabhupada says, our Jamil performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness in his youth, but the result that he enjoyed at the end of his life was 100% by the grace of the Lord. Just think about that for a moment. Meditate on that throughout the day. Let it be an inspiration for you to chant better quality rounds today, not to take any bhog, but always eat prasadam throughout the day. Finishing up here now, in the 10th canto, Krishna tells the gopis who have abandoned their homes, abandoned their families, some of them were married, they abandoned their husbands to meet Krishna in the dead of night. So here's what Krishna says to them. Ajiv yaktai karam bhavam yashtu anyam upajivati nachatajmad vindate chemam jaranari ashatamaham. Krishna says to the gopis, if one thing is actually sustaining our life, but we take shelter of something else, how can we achieve any real benefit? We would be like an unfaithful woman who can never achieve any actual benefit by consorting with our paramour. So this is so clever. The gopis have left some of their husbands in order to join Krishna in the middle of the night. So Krishna says, if you leave someone who is your maintainer and support and go to someone else like a paramour, there's no benefit. And there's great censure, there's great sin. So the gopis have done exactly that. They've left their husbands and their families, who in the estimation of society are their maintainers and their supporters, and they've come to Krishna, a single boy playing his flute in the dead of night in a secluded place. So it would appear at a superficial reading, and this is why people are caution against going directly to the 10th canto, because they're sure to misinterpret the activities of Krishna. You have to approach this 10th canto by going through the first 9 cantos. So Krishna's saying that one who leaves their family and their husband to approach a paramour, that's censured, that's forbidden activity. That's not going to get you a good result. And that's exactly what the gopis have done. But listen to what Krishna is saying. It's saying that if you leave the one who's sustaining your life and go to someone who is not sustaining your life, who is not integral to your life, then that is a great flaw. But who is actually sustaining our lives? All of our life. It's not our husband, it's not our family, it's not the stock market, it's not the bank, it's not our boss, it's not the country, it's not the politics, it's Krishna. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartite iti matva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. It is only Krishna from whom everything comes. It is only Krishna who creates us, who provides for us, and who supports us. And so the gopis leaving their families and their husbands to go to Krishna is the highest emblem of morality. And I dare you to say that those who worship Lord Krishna and chant his holy names are sentimentalists without any understanding or any philosophical background. Just the opposite. If you don't understand Krishna, you cannot have any understanding, any good qualities. You are just like someone who leaves their husband and goes after a paramour. If you're an impersonalist, if you're an atheistic yogi or a mundane speculator, you're exactly like a woman who leaves her husband, her maintainer, who is none other than Krishna, the creator, the maintainer, and provider, and goes running after some paramour. Prabhupada says, here Krishna boldly argues that just as a woman can never achieve actual dignity or enlightenment from an illicit lover, the residents of Vrindavan will never be happy by neglecting the real source of their prosperity. So they actually had even though they're simple cowherd girls, they didn't know the Vedas, they weren't big intellectuals, they couldn't quote verses, they knew who is maintaining them, who is supporting them, who is actually their best friend. And they had eyes and ears only for him. Just a little bit further on, a couple further verses, Krishna says to the gopis, then say to Krishna in answer. Krishna's apparently criticizing the gopis for leaving their husband and coming to him. Actually, he's approving them. He later on says, for your understanding, for your incisive vision of my position, I can never repay you. So the gopis say back to Krishna here, and this is from simple cowherd boys, there's no higher understanding or philosophy than this. Pita gurush tam jagatim adisho taratya kala upata danda hitaya chacha tanabam shamahashe manam viduvam jagarisham maninam. Krishna, you are the father, the husband, the spiritual master of this entire universe, and also its supreme controller. You are insurmountable time, imposing punishment on the sinful for their own benefit. Indeed, in your various incarnations, selected by your own free will, you act decisively to remove the false pride of those who presume themselves to be the masters of this world. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Kara Vichara Vichara Kare Pave Chamatkara. We've taken up a little bit more time than normal because we got carried away with the glories of devotional service, and it looks like you got carried away too, because this has been like the 4th of July, what I call the fireworks, and I'm sure that we're up there, and we can each and every one of us not only take satisfaction in the insights and the realizations that we've, each and every one of us, reciprocally uncovered, but satisfaction in the fact that by our reciprocation, our interactivity, there's a great chance that this will be promoted and exposed and intersect with the lives of those who are unaware of Krishna. And we would like them to be Krishna conscious. We would like Krishna from within their hearts to illuminate them with joy and peace and transcendental knowledge. We would like in them to blossom all good qualities. Christ, Krishna, Muhammad, they weren't coming here to establish another religion, another sect, another denomination. These great souls came to awaken love of God in the hearts of all living beings. So thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your reciprocation, your support, your interactivity. We'll see you with the Bhagavatam classes again next Monday. And we also have programs on the weekend. You're welcome to join us again for Saturday, Sunday programs as well. But until we meet again, don't forget to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'll just wait for the fireworks to die down here.